Hello, awesome students. Today's class is about PALS reading. We are going to discuss the description of PALS reading, which student profiles benefit, how we can incorporate it into the classroom, and research that supports its efficiency. First off, what is PALS? The Peer-Assisted Learning Strategies PALS reading program was originally developed for grades 2 to 6. It is now expanded to incorporate kindergarten, grade 1, and high school. Usually, PALS reading occurs 3 times a week for 35-minute sessions for a period of 16 weeks. The program is used to supplement the pre-existing curriculum, not to replace it. Why is the PALS reading program beneficial? Well, as a teacher, it is difficult to provide adequate instruction for an academically diverse classroom. Those who are at risk for reading failure and/or have learning disabilities do require considerably more instructional engagement, but teachers are unable to do so because of the lack of time allocated within the term and the number of students they need to address. As a result, most lessons provide undifferentiated whole group instruction, and the much-needed individual attention becomes neglected. It has proven to be effective not only for students with LD, but for low and average achieving students because the books are catered towards their reading level. It also benefits students with emotional and behavioral disorders, as we'll discuss. The best part of the PALS reading program is that it increases the amount of time allocated for individual engagement with the materials. How? Well, it's structured interaction between partners, frequent interaction and feedback, reciprocal teaching and learning. The teacher is no longer the only educator within the classroom. The students also take on this role and share this responsibility as they successfully aid their fellow classmates in the learning process.
Now we're going to talk about PALS in the kindergarten and first grade. Because the grades 2 to 6 PALS activities require some degree of reading competency for meaningful participation, different activities were created to accommodate the development of skills appropriate for younger children. At this age, children are learning the alphabetic code through phonological awareness, sound letter correspondence, decoding, and fluency. If a student is unable to read, it is not always due to poor instruction, environmental disadvantages, and certainly not because of low intelligence. Sometimes the individuals have a learning disability. Students with reading disabilities could have defects in the phonological process. Meet Billy. Billy was diagnosed with developmental dyslexia. Copying down notes takes a copious amount of time, and even finding a page number in a book proves to be a difficult task. Billy knows that he performs at a slower pace than his fellow classmates, and because of this, he is in constant fear of being ridiculed. Instead of asking questions for clarification and assistance, he finds ways to distract his classmates to avoid work. What is dyslexia and how does it affect Billy? Dyslexia is not a result of poor instruction, but is neurological and often genetic. Most students who have reading disabilities or developmental dyslexia struggle to use alphabetic cues to decode words, and as a result, these students often have difficulties with accurate word recognition, decoding, and spelling. Billy has an inability to phonologically process information. This means that his brain is unable to properly use the sound system of language to process written and oral information. This program teaches one of the processes, phonemic awareness. In order to master alphabets and eventually words, phonemic awareness needs to develop in Billy. Right now, he has difficulties identifying, isolating, and manipulating phonemes. First grade PALS has 2 main activities. They are sound and word and hearing sounds. We are going to talk about hearing sounds. Hearing sounds is performed in the same manner. The coach is given a list of simple words, and the reader has to identify the first and last sound that is underlined in the word. Students are thereby practicing phonemic segmentation. This is done through modeling. Each word is printed, and there are dots below each letter sound or syllable. The coach says each word slowly, stretching the sound, and thereby isolating each phoneme, and then quickly. After this is done, he or she asks, what is the first and last sound? It is the reader's job to say each sound within the word as identified by the dots. Unacceptable is broken down into a syllable-sized unit that makes it easier for the student to recognize certain letters and to sound out the words based on what his memory has retrieved from the tutor's examples and previous knowledge and regurgitate it. Billy, therefore, does not need to rely as much on his executive functioning and working memory. This develops fluent word recognition and phonological awareness. Thus, Billy's ability to read has improved.
The reader is able to look at the page, use memory, and process the written and oral information simultaneously, thereby improving their phonemic awareness and decoding skills. As new words and sounds are introduced each week, students are constantly reviewing. This also leads to the development of fluent word recognition. So thanks to PALS, Billy's phonological awareness has increased, and he is now an active reader. This could also be incorporated through cross-age tutoring. In one class, 5th grade students volunteered with the Reading Buddies program and were paired with 1st graders for 1 period a week. The process is as followed. 1st graders would choose a primary level book and read it cover to cover. They would then select 6 to 12 vocabulary words, and they that they thought might be difficult for a first grader to read and or understand. Taking this list of words, they would produce them on flashcards, printing the word on one side and a sentence that contained it on the back. They would also think of 6 comprehension questions to accompany the text. Now that they had their reading buddy with them, they present the flashcards, reading the word, and then using it in a sentence to help them discover the meaning. They take turns reading the book orally and then discuss the comprehension questions. What is the benefits of this process? Well, here, all students are able to benefit through participation. The coach becomes a role model and they develop a sense of responsibility that can be used in other activities. Here, Billy, with his first grade tutor, is able to benefit immensely through the flashcards that first display the word and then reflect its meaning. This process enhances his phonological awareness because through the verbal exclamation and the aid of the tutor, he is able to use the sound system of language to simultaneously process written and oral information, store the information learned within his memory, and relate it back to the book when he reads it. Unfortunately, the teaching of phonemic awareness may not always be successful due to a student's inability to retrieve phonological codes from long-term memory. This is also known as lexical retrieval weakness. The process of listening and reading, storing the information within the brain, and retrieving it to answer the scripted questions becomes difficult. Other forms of intervention may be necessary.
Now we're going to talk about grades 2 to 6. When Billy enters grades 2 to 6, he can continue learning through the PALS program. Within grades 2 to 6, the teacher implements 3 35-minute PALS sessions each week. The main activities include paragraph shrinking and production relay. Paragraph shrinking requires readers to monitor their comprehension and make deliberate judgments on the selection and reduction of information. After reading a paragraph, the tutee needs to identify the main idea in 10 or fewer words. By summarizing text in this form, it enhances student comprehension. Prediction relay involves the tutee making and checking predictions they have of the text. It is associated with stronger comprehension because students need to create new predictions as they read, for the original expectations may not occur. They also perform the task of summarizing the story by resequencing what they've read. The coach asks, "What did you learn first? What did you learn next?" etc. until the story is complete. This process also enhances student comprehension. These comprehension activities are challenging exercises in which all students, regardless of their ability, are able to participate in. In each of the cases, student engagement to reading increased, and as such, so did their skills. They were able to construct meaning from the text, make predictions, and summarize the text by retelling it verbally. Here, students have repeated exposure to vocabulary, are able to expand on their internal lexicon. High school. Now Billy has entered high school. If a student has a limited reading competence, it can result in lower self-esteem and behavioral issues. These students are less likely to compete high school than more skillful readers due to the high stress and lack of motivation. This reading program thereby aids at-risk students who contain learning disabilities or have lower reading ability. High school PALS reading is also centered around motivating students to learn. Terminology does change within the secondary school system to cater to their maturity. Instead of using sports metaphors such as coaches, it uses works themes, where the tutees become the workers, and if they succeed, they can earn rewards such as Employee of the Month or PAL dollars. Students at these age need reinforcement to learn, so the PAL dollars can be used to purchase donated items from PAL catalogs such as CDs and sports team apparel. These activities remain the same, but the content changes, making it more relevant to students' lives. It addresses life skills, social relationships, etc.
Billy has also exhibited behavioral disorders and social skill deficits. He was constantly acting out in class in an attempt to mask his so-called academic inadequacies because he feared that other students would realize that he lacked the ability to read. His classmates often felt as though he was a distraction and became easily irritated with him. Research has shown that the PALS reading program has greatly improved the emotional well-being of students with learning disabilities. Quite often, these individuals, like Billy, have social skill deficits and behavioral disorders, and because of these issues, they are often alienated or contain a lower social standing than the majority of their peers. A study was performed across 39 grade 6 classes in Nashville, Tennessee. 22 teachers were provided with the PALS reading program and 22 were not, meaning that they did not use cooperative learning or peer tutoring with their students. By examining the 156 children identified with LD in the study, they concluded that these students within the PALS reading program outperformed the no PALS classes. How might you ask? Simple. The PALS reading program requires individuals to frequently interact and work with one another on valued tasks in a setting that they might not normally have done so. How is this beneficial? Well, teachers often use cooperative learning groups that contain 3 to 5 students. LD students are more likely to become marginalized in groups by peers who are more knowledgeable, verbal, and assertive. Students like Billy use this time to either stay silent or find opportunities to divert the conversation to more social topics, thereby avoiding the task at hand. The peer tutoring process of PALS reading makes this virtually impossible because each student is assigned a role and responsibility, making both partners equally indispensable. Billy, being unable to hide through the one-on-one interaction, is now forced to learn in a more productive setting, thereby improving his abilities. As such, the physical process of PALS reading, unlike the cooperative learning groups, promote academic growth by providing everyone with the opportunity to learn, reflect, and repeat. As a result, 20 to 50% of these 156 children identified with LD or speech and language impairments have shown gains in reading in comparison to the non-PALS classes because the activities are now geared towards their individualistic needs. Students are practicing strategies that have been shown to strengthen reading fluency and comprehension when implemented regularly and with accuracy. But great, Billy has learned to read, but what about his behavioral issues and social skill deficits? By cooperating with a tutor or tutee, each student develops skills such as listening and respect as they respond to their peers. If students have social skill deficits or behavioral problems, quite often they may distract, irritate, anger, confuse, embarrass, or negatively impress other children. This activity gets them to focus their attention on cooperation. As a result, most students within the class began to socially accept them. Towards the end of the study, students were to rate their classmates with a happy face for like, a sad face for dislike, or a neutral face for being indifferent. In the non-PALS classes, students had a negative social preferencing rating towards LD students, whereas the PALS classroom, students had a positive social preference rating. LD students were seen as equal to lower achieving, average achieving, and higher achieving students. Success. The peer tutoring therefore became a means for which teachers could facilitate the social integration for students with LD. Through this interaction, students started to get to know Billy. He now feels like he is part of the class.
Now for teacher testimonials. Hi, I'm Miss Johnson from Dew Point Elementary School. This is my 4th year teaching kindergarten. I have never had so many students reading at this time in kindergarten. The program is very easy to implement and extremely beneficial to all students. All students will go to 1st grade knowing letters, sounds, decoding skills, and reading many words. Students who participated in this program will have a head start on other children in regards to reading as they enter the 1st grade.